It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out. And today's guest is someone I met recently. Her name is Tatiana Tsoir. She's a biohacker, uh, an accountant, and she has a nonprofit that has to do with money. And we know that in this community, up there she is, actually during and post divorce with exes like ours. Oh, let's see. Wait, let me get her on here. Um, Anyway, so today we're going to talk about what do I do now? Money and finances during and post divorce. So thanks, Tatiana, for jumping on with me today, and sorry for my delay. In my head, it's Monday.
No worries at all. No worries.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
So, so what is something that you see happen in your, actually, let me start with something different. What's a biohacker?
So biohacking is changing the environment outside of you and inside of you so that you can control your biology.
Wow. Okay. And how does it relate to money and what you do as an accountant with finance background?
Well, it doesn't directly relate, but it does kind of indirectly because, you may have a bunch of issues and a bunch of problems, but when you have an issue with health, you now only have one problem, and that's being and staying healthy. And so, um, from my own personal experience, I found that fixing my personal cadence, my routine, that's taking care of my sleep, my eating habits, my sports and fitness, um, directly affects how I perform at work and in my business and in the family too. So that's kind of, it's just a personal personal um, belief in, I have an autoimmune condition that's completely controlled and reversed because of biohacking. So yeah.
Well, I think the overlap I see is like getting things in order. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is money
Yeah.
and how to get that in order again during and post divorce. So can you first formally introduce yourself, and then we'll get into what we're going to talk about.
Sure. My name is Tatiana Tsoir, and I am a super CPA, an advisor, a philanthropist, and an author and speaker. So I'm not a jack of all trades, but it might seem like that. But all of the things that I am involved in directly relate to business and business. And I believe that business is personal because people don't start businesses just because they want to start a business. They start a business because they want to have a better life for themselves and their families, and it gives them a certain level of freedom. So that's kind of why I believe that business doesn't live outside of personal, if you will.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about money, and our audience are people going through high conflict divorce, separations, custody battles, and then the thereafter with the co-parenting. And money is often part of what our exes use as a threat. I'm going to leave you homeless. I'm going to leave you penniless, and you're not going to be able to function without me. And I think a lot of people coming out of these relationships have it in their heads that they're not going to be able to function, and they're just terrified and filled with dread. Are there other things that you've seen during your own experience watching people get divorced regarding money that happen in cases like ours?
Absolutely. I think the most probably common thing is and sometimes I have to explain that to men specifically, which is interesting, which I found to be interesting. But oftentimes, there is something called financial abuse that's present in a high conflict divorce, and pretty much almost every divorce, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And men, when I say something like that, men usually say, "What do you mean? What is financial abuse?" And I'm like, "Well, a woman not being able to leave because she doesn't have a job because she devoted herself to family, to kids, and maybe she had a great career, but she wasn't really particularly passionate about it before, and then she decided to leave it and raise a family, and now that career already has a big time gap where she can't really go back to it and to the same levels and stuff like that. Or she works a full-time job and there's still maybe well, let's assume it's a traditional marriage, a he and a she. 80% of today's violence is committed by men. So I think it's a pretty good assumption. Um, Typically, there's other financial abuse where it's whether it's withholding money for kids or filing taxes quickly. I've certainly seen that happen in my practice many times, where as soon as the filing opens, a bitter spouse files taxes, claiming the kids, even though, let's say, somewhere in the agreement they were not supposed to, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And often, especially during COVID, it really was pretty terrible in a sense that there was a significant child tax credits and other benefits where if whoever claimed the kids first would get a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I thought you were still gonna go. So are there other things that I always think about, like what are in particular are some misconceptions people have about money during divorce or post-divorce? Like it's gonna be like this, that you could say no, and here's why. It's not actually like that.
Um, I think it's important to understand, to kind of step back a second and understand the significance of money. Um, when you're talking about, and you guys are talking a lot about abusive marriages, abusive relationships, abusive divorces, or abuse in one form or another. And I think that it needs a little bit of a connection to money, because when you have a situation of violence or abuse, or whether it's legal abuse, which is what you focus on, financial abuse, or physical abuse, or honestly even mental abuse as well, we're talking about, if you're looking at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're looking at the second level of the needs, which is the need for security, right? We're talking about physical security, financial security, and everything else. And so money for us as human beings is, especially in the United States, and I grew up in a different country, so it was slightly different there. It wasn't mm, as much of a primal need as it is in the United States. But in the United States specifically, we have money taking a portion of that second level, which is, the first level is the basic needs: to eat, to sleep, to, I don't know, go to the bathroom, take a shower, whatever, those basic needs. And even if you're all the way up at the self-actualization level, which is the top of the pyramid, um, if the bottom level is threatened in one form or another, you're going back down to taking care of that need. And that's where health comes in. That's where all of those things come in. But then the second level is the need for security, which is where you have to feel secure in many ways: physical security, financial security, and money is one of our primal needs, because it directly affects our ability to feel safe and secure in life. And especially when kids are involved, that's like magnified 10 times, because, or probably more than 10 times, because that's now a survival question, if you will. And
Yeah.
so in divorce, there's a lot of financial manipulations, usually, especially when it comes to taxes. After 2018, I think it was, um, alimony payments now are taxable to the recipient and deductible for their, not taxable and not deductible for their. So basically, before, an ex would agree to pay alimony, and we're not talking about child support, right? Child support is
Right.
slightly different, but
Mm-hmm.
alimony payments, and they would deduct it and they would lower their tax. Now they want to reduce that amount as much as possible, because they don't get a deduction for it. It's after tax money. So because of that, unfortunately, there has been other creative ways of getting out of paying alimony. There always have been creative ways of really getting out of alimony, but especially now. And child support is another thing. There's creative accounting happening, which is what I see. I've gotten some requests for that in the past, but integrity is everything for a professional. So um, I wouldn't never help somebody hide assets, which there are ways to do, to hide businesses and things like that, so that you can reduce your alimony payments and child support payments too. And so there's a lot of creativity happening. So there's a lot of financial abuse in that way, if you will, happening that you need to keep in mind. And so, like forensic accountant being involved is a great idea. Often, I've had a client a long time ago who was I actually wasn't his CPA, so he had another CPA at that point. We were just doing his books, his business books, and he started like a bunch of different entities and transferred money and all those things. And I was like, why are you doing this? And he didn't tell me explicitly that he was hiding assets from his wife,
Mhm.
but eventually her forensic accountant found everything, and then he was penalized and all of those things. So we have an expression in Russian that all hidden always becomes visible
Mhm.
one point or another. And so I believe in that. So you just have to kind of keep in mind. And I think here the most critical part of this is to educate yourself on some of the basics. We are, as women, I believe that we are taught to kind of play it safe. We're not encouraged to learn the principles of tax and money and how all of this works. And so a lot of women kind of set it aside, push it aside, and say, "Oh, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at this," and kind of shoot themselves in the foot in that sense, because knowledge in this case is power. I mean, of course, when people get married, they don't think that they're going to get divorced. They don't think that there may be abuse, things like that. But at the same time, I believe in optionality, which is creating a choice for your tomorrow, today. And so this is part of that choice. Educate yourself on tax. How does tax work? Where is there an ability to hide assets? Talk to your accountant, brainstorm with them, and go from there.
Yeah, great. So I was going to say, give us some tips and tricks. You already just ran through a whole bunch. Now, one of the things that I learned when you and I first met is that there's this whole nonprofit this project that you're trying to start. You want to talk about that? Because I thought it was fascinating, especially for women in particular who are getting out of relationships thinking, how am I going to survive? Especially if they haven't been in the workforce for years and they're just thinking, I don't have any skills. Often their exes are getting the God, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like an analysis to see how much they're capable of earning as a salary. But often it's tricky because they've been out of the workforce for so years. A lot of them are in their 50s or late 40s, and so they feel like it's I'm not going to make the same amount that I used to.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you're working on and why.
So about 12 years ago, I started a nonprofit called Society for Financial Independence. I initially started it, and its mission still is to educate women, immigrants, and teens and abuse survivors in the basics of financial management. And that includes educating those target groups in the skills. So we are starting this year, we're starting with the skill of bookkeeping. I believe that it's a phenomenal skill for women to have, for moms to have, whether they're divorced or not. And the reason being that it's pretty much working from home, flexible hours. I mean, realistically, there's um, no such thing as like an emergency in accounting. Like you don't have, like, yes, there are tax deadlines, but bookkeeping is slightly different. I mean, if you've closed the year, you're good, and you have 2 months to do that potentially. And so that's kind of the first project. And so it's great for people who want to get back into the workforce. It's great because it's a skill. There are very few professions that are actually a skill. Like, a degree in history or philosophy is not a skill.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much you can do with it. But bookkeeping is something that you can make money with regardless of where you are in life. Nobody cares how old you are. What they do care about is how good you are in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. And so that's what we focus on now, because I've been training bookkeepers for about 5 years, but I was a bookkeeper before I became an accountant. And so what I found was that a lot of bookkeepers in the US, because you don't need a degree to become one, a lot of them learn the software like QuickBooks or Sage and call themselves bookkeepers, where in fact they're actually just software users. And so we as CPAs, as EAs, as accountants, we when we review that work, 99% of the time it's just bad work because they don't understand the basics of accounting.
Mm-hmm.
And so the course that I created about 5 years ago when I was selling privately, meaning selling to the public, but not donating it to the nonprofit, we've had over probably close to 100 students, graduates, and the feedback has been phenomenal. But the most important part is that I then hire, and then my friends, my CPA friends, hire from that pool. But then you don't have to want to become a bookkeeper necessarily. It's if you want to start your own business and you want to bootstrap in the beginning, great. You know how to do this. You will know how to do this really well. Or if you want to start a business and make sure that people don't steal from you, because I've worked twice for different companies where the bookkeeper was stealing and stuff, and it's the people that you would suspect the least, just like with violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I started this back in the day, and I am a survivor of an abusive relationship. This relationship happened about 20 years ago, and I know the kind of the stigma around it, and I know how others don't really understand why you can't just leave, why you can't just get out. It's not as simple as that. But for me, it's a personal pursuit. So I'm a first generation immigrant. I'm a woman. I'm a mom. I was once a teen, and I'm an abuse survivor. So we are serving groups. We're serving people, basically providing them free education in the skill of bookkeeping through attracting scholarships for them. So essentially, you can apply if you're fitting into one of those groups: teens, first generation immigrants, moms, or abuse survivors. Then you can apply to get the free education and get the skill of bookkeeping that you can apply doing other things. You don't have to be a bookkeeper. You want to be a VA, great. You want to do something else, you work full time, and then you want to eventually leave so that you can take care of your kids, great. You can use that skill as a transitional career or profession or whatever. So that's kind of what we
Wow.
started with. Yeah.
So how can so I'm pretty sure that everyone who's watching now and will watch later absolutely fits into one of those categories, if nothing else, the last one. How do people find you? How can they apply? I mean, it makes so much sense, but quickly before you answer that, what if you're bad at math?
Well, there's actually a meme that shows like a blackboard with basically a bunch of calculus on it, and it says, what people think accountants are doing in terms of math. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
another blackboard with basically chalk numbers like 5 + 1 is 6, and it says this is the math that we actually do. I mean, all the math is done by computers. What you need to have is logical reasoning, which if you're a mom, you're good at
Yeah.
it. Time management, if you're a mom, you're good at it. And so all of the other skills, I mean, common sense, all of the other skills that you get as a mom are applicable in bookkeeping. So it's definitely, math has nothing to do with it. You just have to be able to see numbers. Like if it doesn't match, it's just 1 penny off. You need to be able to spot it. Like how hard is that? You know what I mean? Like if you're raising kids, it's honestly not a big deal and stuff. And so we're starting with bookkeeping. We will add tax skills next year. We'll add some business acumen next year as well. We're looking for applicants, but we're also looking for sponsors. And I think that it's great. It's a great opportunity for accounting firms to invest in American talent because right now, I don't know if you know, but like in America, the accounting people don't want to become accountants anymore. The accounting enrollment is down in colleges. It has been for years. And then a lot
Why
of
do you think
the
that? Why do you think that's so, Tatiana? Why wouldn't somebody want to be an accountant?
because accounting has really had a bad rap. Because when you're in accounting, you're brainwashed into thinking you should go to the Big Four. You go to the Big Four and you work 100 hours a week, have no life, you kill your health, you neglect your body for years. And I think nobody wants to do that. But there has been a rise of non-traditional firms. I call them progressive firms like mine, where it's all about the quality of life. Yes, we charge a lot more for our accounting services. Yes, we don't just do once a year tax returns. We support you throughout the year. But we are able to also hire American. We invest in American staff. We invest in American people. We educate American people. You know, there's a lot of accounting firms that do outsourcing to India, and especially the big four firms. And it's been a trend because there's not enough people wanting to be an accountant in the US. But for people like teens, it's a skill, right? It's a lifetime skill. For moms, it's could be a second career. And so those are target groups that I think the accounting firms, the bigger accounting firms, don't think about and don't consider, because of course moms will not want to work 100 hours a week, but the mindset that they need to go through it needs to change, because there's no more, I don't like this word, but slaving for the accounting firms. That era is over.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, the reason there's a lot of them are retiring. A lot of tax professionals, 7 years ago there was an article that said that 75% of tax professionals is over the age of 65. So we're looking at a massive exodus, but a huge opportunity for somebody who's a career switcher, who's a mom, maybe first generation immigrant, who wants to make a decent living and have a dignified life in retirement. An abuse survivor, it's phenomenal, because especially if you have kids, like how do you plan on driving your kids around or taking them places if you don't, like if you have to go to the office and things like that. And so I think it's just a great skill that allows you to do all of those things and build a good life, or build a business when you know the basics. Just really think it can turn life around.
Yeah.
For someone.
It's brilliant. So someone asked a question that, of course, I was going to ask. So how can people learn more? Like, how do they find you? Tell us how they can get started.
So the applications are open right now. We're receiving a lot of applications. We're also pursuing accounting firms for funding, but the applications you can find that it's almost like a shortcut. So Society for Financial Independence, and it's SO for Society for, so FFIND.org. So I can actually put that in the comment. This way it stays here for
so SOFFIND.org.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
Great.
I put it in the message. So yeah, so you can read about it, you can apply. The application forms are there. It basically, if you are eligible for two groups, there's no difference. You can apply to either one. Like if you're a mom and an abuse survivor, you can apply to either one of them. But yeah, welcome applications, and would love to launch our first cohort before the end of the year.
Great. And so the education, can people do this virtually, or is it in person somewhere?
It's definitely not in person, because there's no way to provide this type of education in person. So it's all virtual. There will be pre-recorded trainings plus live case studies, live business sessions like office hours and things like that.
That's fantastic. Wow. And then just quick last question. Somebody asked a pop culture thing about J-Lo and Ben Affleck, and they didn't have a prenup. And do you think that he gets to take half of her assets? And if you can't answer, that's okay. I just figured I'd throw it in.
I don't know. If they didn't have a prenup, which is, I don't actually follow celebrities much, because I care about regular people more than I care about celebrities.
Me too.
And so if they didn't have a prenup, then the state law will govern how much gets to whom, but their net worth will be compared and stuff. And I don't comparing the net worth of each person and figuring out who needs more support. So I don't know if that's even going to apply as much. There might be some settlement, but I don't expect it to be significant, to be honest.
Interesting. All right. So again, say who you are and how people can find you, just in case. I'm going to hammer it home because this is such like a phenomenal idea.
So my name is Tatiana Tsoir. I'm a super CPA, but I'm also a philanthropist. And so the project that we're talking about is the Bookkeeper Project, and you can find it at soffind.org, stands for Society for Financial Independence. And if you want to read more about me, it's tatianatsoir.com.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tatiana. I really appreciate this. And I have a feeling you'll be hearing from some people in our community. And
Awesome.
thanks for what
Thanks for having me.
you do.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Talk to you later.
bye.
Talk to you
Okay.
later. Bye.